I am just charging before I get ready to start my day. Already it's giving me it's not the vibe. I made a post over on TikTok before TikTok went dark where I was talking about how a job reached out to me, said I was the perfect candidate. They agreed to the fact that I had a doctorate degree. We both agreed to that. And only for them to say this position only pays $22. The fact of the matter is that the position required that. Anyway, I didn't get that job. But there was another job that I had been waiting on. I had interviewed for it before Christmas, like right before I was going on my Christmas cruise, the day I was leaving for my cruise. I had the interview that morning. No, I had the interview, sorry, that Friday. And he was like, okay, we'll follow up with you on Monday. So I'm like, okay, cool. 9 o'clock works. I'm not leaving for my cruise till like 12. So 9 o'clock works. I'm like, all right, cool, cool, cool. And only for him to call me yesterday after he followed up with me last week and said, oh, you're going to get an interview with the director, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm aggravated because it's going to be the third interview. Only for him to call me yesterday and be like, oh, you didn't get it. Because pretty much he's like, oh, the director feels I'm overqualified for the position. But here's the thing, the position pays so much. And I'm just like, it's an entry level position. Like, wouldn't y'all rather have somebody with over qualifications to be able to get that pay? Anywho, I don't know what's going on with my wig. But with that being said, I also I'm just in a not in a right headspace. Like, my nails not done. Ugh. I'm wearing a wig, which I don't mind wearing the wig, but it's like I just don't have time to, I guess, fix it or whatever. Cause that's aggravating me. But to top it all off, it's like, okay, what y'all looking for? So he's like, oh, we'll keep you on the short list if a director position comes available, blah, blah, blah. He's the recruiter. They're not calling me back. Like, y'all already knew who y'all wanted for the job. And I just was one of the filler interviews that y'all have to do because they just have to do that. Anywho, but because this black girl has something to say, I want to take the time to talk about a few things as it relates to allowing your children to date, this son or daughter, because I have both. Number one, I think if we can get our children, because there's a lot of adults who I wholeheartedly believe, and I come across them, so this is not any just a general belief. This is what I've encountered. There are a lot of adults who believe that intimate relationships are more important than friendships. And I think if we teach our children that friendships are more important than intimate relationships, then they can better identify what they would like in an intimate relationship. I'll never forget, quick story time, when my daughter was in the second grade and she came home and she said, oh, mommy, I have a boyfriend. And I was like, what do you mean you have a boyfriend? A boy that's your friend? And she was like, no, I have a boyfriend. So I asked her, I was like, what I said, so does that mean you're going to be his girlfriend? And she said, yeah. And I said, what do boyfriend and girlfriends do? And she's like, I don't know, hold hands, walk to class together. And this is her in the second grade. And so then I did a thing where I asked Siri and I was like, what can you define for a child? What is a boyfriend girlfriend relationship? And Siri did a pretty good job of doing that. And so pretty much the definition, because I didn't want to, one, as somebody who never had a boyfriend, I ended up, anywho, I never had a boyfriend. When I got pregnant with my daughter, it's not like me and their dad, my ex-husband, it's not like we were dating. We were kicking it, because that's what we used to call it back in the day. We were kicking it. We were definitely doing the do, and I got pregnant, and we decided to be together. So because of that scenario, I know now through therapy that that is not an actual healthy outcome. While the outcome of having my children is the one thing, while getting married was the other thing, getting married and then having children, however, and buying a house and all of that, those were the things you were supposed to do. But I essentially, if we call in an ace a ace and a spade, I did those things without really knowing the person. And so that is not a healthy way to go about it. So with that being said, I didn't want to get the definition of boyfriend girlfriend relationship wrong, so I asked Siri. And when I did, the definition pretty much came out to be an intimate relationship. It was something to the effect of like an intimate relationship where there is hugging and kissing and dating and all of these things. And I was like, are you ready for that? She was in second grade. I was like, are you ready to do that? And she was like, mm-mm. And so I was like, oh, well, go back and tell him that you don't want to be his boyfriend, his girlfriend, Go back and tell him you don't want to be his girlfriend he because you're not ready to be a girlfriend yet. And so she's like, what if it hurts his feelings? I said, well, if it hurts his feelings, tell him that you all can just be friends. And if he doesn't want to be your friend, that's okay too. So she goes and she tells him, and when she comes home that day, I'm like, oh, you told him you don't want to be his girlfriend. And she said he was like, okay. And that was it. And so it goes back to even having that quick little quiver in her heart where it's like, what if he doesn't want to be my friend anymore? Listen, if somebody doesn't want to be your friend because you are setting a boundary, they don't need to be your friend. This is why I'm saying we need to teach our children that friendships are more important than intimate relationships, because what happens is there's a lot of people who are crap. They are piss poor friends. They are not good friends. I'm trying not to curse. They are piss poor friends. They're not good friends. And then they be in relationships wondering why these relationships don't work out. Whole time it's because you're not a good friend. And how can you be a good intimate partner and not a good friend? It just doesn't work. It just, even when people talk about, oh yeah, he's a great he's a good dad, but he's not a great husband. No, he's just not a good person, because you cannot have one without the other. And when you look at the statistical data, it does come back in that way. So I'm teaching my children that friendships are more important than intimate relationships. Now, the relationship that they have with me as their parent, I'm letting them know that's unconditional. There is no one who is going to match that other than the good Lord and Savior, honestly. But the love that you have for yourself can be unconditional. Love yourself the way that I love you. And I think a lot of parents don't want to take the time to look back and reflect on, maybe I'm not such a great person. Maybe I need to get therapy. Maybe I need to revise how I am as a parent. So because of that, I don't really have, like with my son, he's able to go on play dates. He goes to play dates with girls because he is still young enough to understand that he still thinks girls are icky, but if they like the same game, they have common interests, they get to play together, that is okay, right? So he's learning from his big sister. And it's funny because when you have your first child is kind of the child where it's like trial and error. By the time you get to your second child, it's like, oh, so the things that my son is learning at 10 is the things that my daughter end up learning at 12, right? So I saw the video on TikTok. She said, women do not know how to date because they're not allowed to date within the house. And she gave some examples of what that looks like. And I'm going to see if I can find the video so I can tag it in this live description once it's posted. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I have a friend whose son is like 12. And I'm like, yeah, he's supposed to learn that is his friend. He's not dating. Because I feel like there's a lot of social, emotional, and mental development that has to take place. For me, I say my daughter could date when she's like 16. Why 16? Because by then she'll probably have a phone. She'll probably have a little job. She'll probably have her car, which is the car that I'm going to gift her. She's already been learning how to drive since she was 13. So she'll have the social, emotional, and mental developed skills. And we're rebuilding the trust, the building blocks of trust between mother and daughter, in order for her to say, you know what, let me talk to my mom about this. So case in point, if she's chatting with a guy that's her friend, a boy that's her friend, I always express the friendships that you have with the boys should not feel any different than the friendships you have with the girls. And if they make you feel like it should be different, then they're really not trying to be your friend. They're trying to gain something else from you. And y'all know what I'm talking about. I also wholeheartedly am teaching her that what I'm teaching you, somebody else is not teaching that person that. So that's why you have to be strong in what you believe in and not waver away from it. So not to say that she will be all-knowing by 16, but by 16 there will be those social, emotional, and developmental skills that are kind of there. And we all know that there's a lack in the frontal lobe development. So again, having that level of trust, being able to say, hey, and casually have conversations with me about conversations that you have with your guy friends, your girlfriends, is a way to, and not make it awkward, right? So, But that girl made that video, and a lot of women were in the comments saying now they understand why they feel so weird around boys. And it's because when you come home from high and you're in high school, you come home, you tell your mom, oh, you have a crush on somebody. Immediately, you ain't got no crush on him. Uncrush it. Mm-mm. And it's like that is a regular social skill, is to find that you like somebody a little bit differently than you like your friends. But a lot of us never got to process that, or we were made to feel awkward. So then now when you're in these spaces, you're feeling awkward. Like for me, when it comes down to getting back into that space, I just treat everybody as if it's a business transaction because I own a business. So it's easier to just feel like I'm networking as opposed to dating. I treat it like networking and having those conversations and talking and going to places and meeting people. I treat it like a networking event. But because I'm on live just while I'm charging my car. But with that being said, you can tune into Black Girl Say Something every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are also on Patreon. And on Patreon, I will be continuing this topic over there. Right now, I think the Patreon might be free, so you might want to get over there before I add the fee to it. There's also subscriber only content available if you're on Spotify. You can also ask questions. So if this live intrigued you and you have a question, head over to Spotify, listen to one of the episodes, and ask a question. We're on Apple Podcasts. I mean, honestly, Black Girl Say Something is wherever you tune in. We are also on Fanbase, and of course, you know we're on TikTok. TikTok went away and it's back, and something about it ain't right, but I'll talk about that on another episode. Anywho, if something was said on this live that resonated with you, share this with at least one person. And remember, you can tune into Black Girl Say Something every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for tuning in.